Welcome to season 2 of the Huddle House. We back, baby. Oh my gosh, I've been looking forward to this all day. I'm here with my good buddy Ty, who had a very, very eventful past couple of weeks. We're going to get into all of that. And also Mr. Lucas Wyland, aka the Sam Presti of our Dynasty League, collecting picks left and right. We're going to get into all of that. But first off, how you guys doing?
I'm doing great. I was going to call him the Morgan Wallen of our fantasy league.
With that haircut, oh my gosh, I didn't expect him to look like that.
And we didn't even give a comment about the wallpaper he had up there, the Bengals Super Bowl run.
We don't need to address it.
There's no comments needed, Ty. No comments needed. The stats speak for themselves.
I mean, gosh, I could talk about that. We could spend 45 minutes talking about that.
And I'd be down.
First off, I want to mention that this season will be brought to you from 2 separate locations than what you guys got in season 1. Your boy has moved into his own apartment, so I got my own place here. And Ty did the same. So we're growing up right in front of your eyes.
Growing up, baby.
Brand new locations. I don't know where Lucas is at. Probably like
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
I'm in Connecticut. Matt's in Kentucky, and you're in Florida. We are like all up and down this East Coast right now.
Oh yeah.
I'm in horse country, baby. Lexington itself.
Well, all right. Let's just get into this, guys. So, Matt, what do you have in store for us today? What's our plan?
All right, so yeah, for sure. Next week, we're going to try to get into breaking down the NFL draft on the next episode of the Huddle House. I don't know who we'll be getting on for that, but stay tuned. But yeah, we will be kind of talking about that draft. But this week, since the draft isn't happening yet, we're not really going to get into that this week. We're going to get into the offseason since it was so eventful with free agency. And gosh, we were so active. Not just me, not just us three. The entire league was all over the place with shifting up our rosters for this next season to see where things are going. And
I think a lot of us got bored.
Yeah, we got bored of no NFL on Sundays, and we're like, we just got to be moving these guys just to have something to talk about. We've found a way to keep the chat active, and I respect it. But I counted 23 moves this offseason, not acquisitions, but like trades that happened. And we are going to do your episode of trade grades where each of us three kind of gives our grades of each of those moves, what we thought about them from each guy's perspective. So the major moves we'll spend a good amount of time on. The not so major moves, we'll just kind of we'll give our grades and we'll just kind of brush through them. But because we're not going to keep this an hour and a half, but it will be probably a longer episode. So I'm adding a 24th trade, and that trade will be giving us about an hour of your time, and we'll trade you some good entertainment. So strap in.
Oh man. Well, you are a cornball. One of the things that I noticed.
You got that written down, Bill?
I thought of it before it started, honestly.
The players that got traded, it seemed like kept getting recycled in trades. Like somebody would pop up, and then it was like they went through 4 different teams in one offseason. I think that was one thing I really noticed looking through the list. It was crazy how just once an asset got moved, it was open season and it was going in anywhere else.
Well,
it was hot potato.
I think part of that is when an asset hasn't put up any points for you, you have a little bit less of an emotional connection to them. So you might be a little bit more willing to send them off for something else. So
that's a good point. Very good point.
For sure.
So are we going to go in just chronological order based on the trades that happened this offseason?
Yep, chronological order. And we're going to try to, take these kind of for what they were at the time, but we're also going to sort of give hints as to sort of like what might have happened in the future and then kind of address those future moves, whenever they come up. But we're going to try our best to hit all of these. Like I said, it might be a little longer than our 45 minutes, but we'll figure it out. We're going to try to get to all of these, but we're going to have to start right now. We're going to start with a move I made, actually. This might have actually been slightly before the Super Bowl, but I'm counting it because I wanted to talk about it. It was when me and Brandon did the deal where I received Tua Tagovailoa and $30 fab, and gave away Ryan Tannehill and Chris Evans. I'll let you guys start and let me know how I did there.
Okay, so I just think we'll throw out grades for it. Here's what I have on that one. I have B for Matt and a B for Brandon. And I like the move for Matt. Obviously, you get to stack with Tua. And obviously, Tua had a really good offseason getting Tyreek Hill and Mike McDaniels as the coach. I think it's going to allow him every opportunity for success. With that being said, we just haven't seen it yet. And I think that makes him a bit of a liability, or not necessarily a liability, just an unknown in the deal. Tannehill's a solid quarterback. Chris Evans, I think, has a lot of upside in that Bengals offense to become a running back too. Pray to goodness I don't want Samaje Perine back out there. So I'm hoping Evans can become that guy. So that's why I think it made sense for Brandon. You know, if he isn't that invested into it, get a backup or a handcuff running back, solid backup. And for you, I think it made sense to get a stack. And ultimately, Tua is a backup quarterback for you now too. So B's both ways for me.
I'm going to go with the B+ for Matt. I think that stack with Waddle really means a lot to him, and especially after what we've seen happen in this offseason when the Tyreek Hill landing there. You know, Ryan Tannehill, he's older. He's not great. Everyone knows he's not great unless he's playing on my team. Okay, first of all. But yeah, it'll give it a C+ for Brandon. I don't believe in Chris Evans a whole lot. I think when they move on from Joe Mixon, they'll surely draft somebody, and I don't see him ever turning into anything. And then Tannehill's sort of just an aging quarterback that doesn't excite me in any way. Tua at least is younger. He has that upside. I know he hasn't shown a lot yet, but this offseason helped him a lot. And with that stack with Waddle, I definitely like this side for Matt a lot better.
Okay. I would go, so before the Tyreek Hill acquisition, I was kind of giving it like probably around a B for myself and probably like a C for Brandon or so. I'm bumping it up to an A- for myself after this, just because I think Tua is young. I mean, yes, he hasn't had a successful career so far, but I think he got the right coach as well to kind of unlock his potential, make a little bit more of a high-powered offense. I know he is just going to be a backup for me, but I think with his weapons and just the coach investing in him, I think that the sky's the limit. Like, I think he could be very good. He has no excuses at this point. And I don't really think I gave up much of significant value. I'm kind of with Lucas. I don't really think Chris Evans is the dude. I mean, he might be like a Geo that just kind of was like occasionally flexible, but I don't really see him ever being a significant part of a roster. And Tannehill has really no upside at all. He's just kind of got like an average floor, but you never really want to start Ryan Tannehill. Whereas there could be a world where you might actually want to start Tua potentially. And just getting 30 fab on top of that just makes it even better. So I like it for me. I give Brandon a C. I think I did really well after all the news that came out afterwards.
All right, and the next one?
All right, next one we got Justin Jackson, Jacoby Myers, Devin Singletary, and the 2023 second. That's what James received. He traded away James Robinson, a 2023 third, and $15 fab to Brandon.
Brandon came in hot in the offseason.
Yeah, he did.
Dude, I didn't realize he made so many moves.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting his name to pop up this many times.
So I guess I'll go ahead and start with this one. I'm giving this a B+ for James. I think he got a pretty good amount of assets here. I mean, I don't love any of the players he got really, but they're all at least decent. I mean, Singletary occasionally can be okay. Jacoby Myers is, I mean, he's not a great player, but he's occasionally flexible. Justin Jackson's a very good handcuff. And he moved up around in regards to picks. He got a second, gave away a third. And I mean, yes, James Robinson, could be good, but I think ETN is really going to take over that backfield, especially after this ACL injury for Robinson. So I'm giving it a C+ for Brandon. Don't really think, yes, he started off the offseason hot, but I really don't think he won either of his first two trades.
I think it was actually an Achilles injury for Robinson.
Or Achilles. Yes, you're correct. Correct. Achilles.
An ACL. So that's
even worse.
Did you say you're brave for Brandon?
Yeah, C+ for Brandon, B+ for James. I don't think it's like a home run for either guy, but I think James definitely got more value.
Yeah, I was very, very close to you on this one, Matt. I gave James a B+ as well, much of the same reasons. I think just got a lot of assets out of that. And I think with James Robinson, I know that Brandon has ETN, so he has that whole backfield now. But I think that if you just look at the draft capital that was invested in ETN relative to James Robinson and you add on the Achilles injury, I think James Robinson might be kind of like on the outs there because they don't even that injury happened late. So he might miss a fair amount of the season. That's a year-long injury. That's a pretty bad one. So I gave Brandon a C.
Very similar.
I gave James a B+ for this one. He got a lot of value, and I think it was he targeted the right person to go after this trade with. I like Jacoby Myers' talent. Not sure, that New England's never a good place for fantasy players, but I like the talent there. I like the pick that he got, the second rounder. But I'm actually going to give a B for Brandon because with his investment in ETN there, I think James Robinson is actually extra valuable to him so that he can control that backfield, especially with how good James Robinson has played. If ETN comes out and doesn't perform well for half a season, I could see a situation where they sort of look to move on or look to make James Robinson that featured back because he did contribute so well. So I understand why he did it, especially considering that second's probably going to be really late, considering Brandon is our league champion right now. So I think it actually made a lot of sense for him. I did think he overpaid slightly, so I do give James the slightly higher grade with the B+, but I think it made sense for both.
All right. Next trade, we got Jake and Mitri made a trade where Jake received Adam Thielen, Jimmy Garoppolo, pick 209 and pick 204 from this draft. Gave away Mike Williams, Michael Gallup, and 112. I will go ahead and lead this one off. Lucas, you can lead off the next one. I'm giving Jake a D- on this. I'm just being honest. This seems kind of harsh, but Adam Thielen is old. I mean, what is he, like 32, 33? He's got one, maybe two decent seasons left, and that's being pretty generous. Jimmy G was a decent acquisition before the Tom Brady news, but now that Tom Brady's back, he doesn't even really need Jimmy G that much. Plus, Jimmy G's not even on a team anymore. He will be, but – and then 209 and 204, like, yeah, I mean, he'll get decent players with that based on, where they're at, but he gave away the better pick, 112. And Mike Williams, I would take Mike Williams over Adam Thielen straight up. And honestly, Gallup and Thielen are fairly similar to me as well. I mean, I might lean Thielen slightly, but it's close. Gallup, especially after Amari Cooper leaving, Gallup is just about as valuable as Adam Thielen. So he gave away two great receivers. I'm giving Mitri an A on this one. I think Mitri knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, Gallup's only 25, so I was very similar. I give Jake a D on this one and Mitri an A just because Mitri got the first-round pick and he got two younger wide receivers who are going to have prominent roles in their offenses, especially now that Gallup is without Cooper in front of him. Although, the Cowboys may draft a receiver. We don't know that yet, speaking as is. And this was at the time, I think you got to keep in mind, this was at the time when Brady was retired. And so Jake didn't have a quarterback. So I think he was kind of at a desperate play to get one, and Jimmy G was one to target. So maybe that led to the, I guess, more dire need to acquire it. But looking back at it now, definitely Mitri came out on top for me.
I'm on the same opinion. I have an A for Mitri and a D rather for Jake. The way I look at it, the 209 and the 204 for the 112 is a pretty fair swap. Those 2 seconds for the one late first. And that leaves us with Thielen and Jimmy G for Mike Williams and Gallup. Thielen is the third ranked receiver in that, and it's not even close in my opinion. He's 31 years old. Jimmy G, like I said, doesn't even have a spot. And Mike Williams is coming off a wide receiver 12 season, I believe. I know he's older. Injury risks are always a big thing with him. They might draft somebody. But he still was wide receiver 12. So he was pretty good. And then
contract with the Chargers.
Mm-hmm. And then Gallup, 25 years old. He was the guy I was trying to buy in the offseason as well. So I definitely like Gallup in that move as well over Thielen. So, yeah, A for Mitri, D for Jake. Pretty lopsided trade there.
All right, Lucas, I'll be letting you lead this one off since you were in it. But number 4, we got Michael Pittman, the 108, and a 2023 first for Cam Akers and McCole Hardman.
I love Cam Akers. I do. I love the talent. I think he's going to have a good role. But I was seeing some stuff in the Dynasty community saying RB5, RB6, RB7. And so I threw him up on the block because ain't no way he's that high in my book. And I was actually able to get what I consider a pretty good haul for that. Michael Pittman, a really young, promising receiver who I was then able to flip later for a real elite tier asset. And then I also got the 108 and then a 2023 first. So as we know, those firsts are really valuable. Debo just got traded off of Carter's team, so maybe he slips a little bit in the rankings. That pick gets a little bit better. So I really like the trade for me. I would give it a B+ for me and probably a C+ for Carter.
You're being generous. You're being generous to Carter.
What? What do you got on this one then?
Oh, I have it very lopsided. I would give Lucas an A+. You knocked it out of the park, dude. Michael Pittman, I mean, I don't like him as much as Akers, but I don't think it's like ridiculously terribly different. I mean, Akers is better, but like,
and he's a running back.
Probably a pretty good wide receiver 2 for Dynasty, pretty safe. And Cam Akers is not a surefire RB1. I mean, definitely not with Darrell Henderson there. Coming off an Achilles injury, wasn't super efficient with his yards per carry once he came back. I mean, I respect he came back so fast. He didn't look that good. He fumbled a lot, didn't really have a whole lot of burst. I'm not really a huge Cam Akers believer. I think he could be a back-end RB1, but I don't really see like top 7 or 8 potential. And so for you to get 2 picks on top of a asset that's not really that much worse than Akers to begin with, I'm giving Carter a D-. I told him that I wouldn't strongly advise not to do this trade the night he told me about it. I was like, you do you, man. I was like, I don't think this is a good move at all. He's like, all right, well, I'm doing it anyway. I'm like, all right, man, suit yourself. But yeah, you wrecked him. I don't think this was even close.
I think where I'm going with this one, if we're thinking about these trades in a vacuum, when this trade was made, we didn't know who the quarterback was going to be for the Colts. I don't think they had Matt Ryan at this time. So you were still looking at like Carson Wentz being the guy. And that definitely Pittman is much more attractive with Matt Ryan as quarterback than as Carson Wentz. However, I still think that I think Lucas won this trade. I gave him an A, gave Carter a B, mostly just because that Rams running back one, whoever it is, we've seen that as an elite fantasy asset, even if it's somebody like Darrell Henderson. And all signs are pointing that to be Cam Akers this year. So I think he's going to be a really good running back this year. But at the same time, that's a pretty nice wide receiver there, and also some premium draft capital for him. A fair return. I think I just leaned with the 2 first-round picks instead of a running back who did have a tough injury and is probably going to be pretty good, but still kind of have to see it. I just kind of like the proven guy in Pittman and the picks.
Just know Carter's going to call me tomorrow and just call me a fag or something like that for giving him that rating. But just being honest, I think you guys are being nice to him. Props to you guys.
Casually drop that. Well, we're putting this on YouTube, man. You can't just say that.
Edit it out. Nah.
Here, Barnes.
And I'm sure our 8 viewers will be fuming. No, it's all good. I'm just saying I think you guys are being nice to him, but we'll move on. I hope it's good for Carter. We'll see. Because anything that punishes Lucas, I'm okay with. So hopefully Carter wins the deal. I don't see it. I think Lucas got a haul for someone that doesn't deserve that haul. So we'll move on. Kareem Hunt, Michael Gallup for James receiving them. Gave away Singletary. Ty, you lead this one off. He gave it to Mitri. Singletary went to Mitri.
Had Hunt and Gallup. Okay, yeah, I gave James a B for this one, and I gave Mitri a C. And I think Kareem Hunt, we know what he is in that offense. He's pretty. I think he actually is the one who's under contract right now. I think Chubb is the one who might be up for a deal, so he has some security there. But I know he's getting up there a little bit. Gallup obviously had a nice offseason, so like that about him and that deal for James. And Singletary finished the year strong, but he's undersized. The Bills are much more passing dense offense, and there has been some whispers about them looking running back in the draft. But granted, we're looking at this in a vacuum. I still just think I'd take the 2 players as opposed to the one. I don't view Singletary and Hunt as all that different, despite Hunt sharing the backfield. So gave James B, Mitri a C.
All right. I gave James an A- on this one. I think he did really well. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I value Hunt more than Singletary. Like I just do. I mean, I've never been a big Singletary believer. I think there's a very good chance they draft Breece Hall or at least get a better running back in this offseason. And I just don't think they really believe in Singletary, so I'm not really a huge fan of him. At least you know what Hunt is, like what you just said. Like he has a role. And you're adding Michael Gallup, who we all 3 just talked about as being a pretty promising young 25-year-old who honestly just got a bigger role in his offense. So you give me a running back that I like more than the other running back, and you throw Michael Gallup on top of him, that's definitely an A-, and I'm giving it a D+ for Mitri. I don't know why he added Gallup. I mean, Hunt and Singletary would have been fairly fair, just swapping them. I don't know why you add Gallup to it.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat. I gave James an A- for this. Mitri a C-. Didn't really want to go into the D territory with this one. Trying to be a little easy on him today, but I will say that I do agree that Hunt is more valuable than Singletary. I think he probably overvalued Singletary's end of the season tear last year. They really just didn't have anybody else, and so Singletary was just the de facto option to carry the ball. I think they're going to draft his replacement this year, either the first round with Breece Hall or the second round with Kenneth Walker, if Breece Hall goes before their second round pick. And so that will render Singletary pretty much useless. I know we're looking at this in a vacuum, but as things have aged, this trade has just gotten worse and worse, especially with Gallup's new contract. So give it a C- for Mitri and then an A- for James.
Gotcha.
Lucas again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got another Lucas one. We got pick 112 and a 2023 second. Lucas just collecting these picks like it's Infinity Stones, man. He's building a gauntlet. Giving away Allen Robinson and the 205 to Mitri. I guess I'll go ahead and kick this one off. I think this was actually a pretty fair trade. I actually really liked this one for both sides when it happened. I liked it for both sides even more when Allen Robinson went to the Rams. I think that's a place where he can definitely thrive with my guy Matthew Stafford throwing him the ball. As long as he's not losing or taking Kupp's targets, we're good. But I'm giving it a B- for Lucas and a B for Mitri. I think it's super close. And I was actually B- B the other way around before the Allen Robinson went to the Rams. But I think it's just such a great landing spot for him. I might value him slightly more than the 112. And then the 2 seconds kind of cancel each other out. I mean, I know the 2023 seconds probably worth a little more, but the 205 is still going to be a decent player. I think those are fairly balanced. And I like Robinson slightly more than the first rounder, especially in this year's draft. So I'll give Mitri a slight win, but it's very close.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty even too. I had C pluses for both of you.
Okay.
Yeah, I had originally in a vacuum before Allen Robinson signed with the Rams. I would have had myself at a B and him at a B-. Now that happened, I would flip the two, just like you said, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that there was too much love lost, and there was no room for Allen Robinson on the Buds after what he did to me this year.
Yeah.
When I sat there on draft night looking him and Jamar Chase down the board, and I picked Allen Robinson, I couldn't stand him on my team for another season. He had to go. He had to go. I wish the best to Mitri and with his situation in the Rams, but he was not going to be a member of the Buds anymore.
You don't need that source of angst and anger.
No. We love our players over here.
When some guys just scorn you that bad and just do you that dirty, you just kind of have to move on, you know?
You have to.
What was yours on that, Matt? I missed it.
I gave B- and B. Mitri slightly winning. Same as Lucas.
Okay.
I thought it was close. All right, moving on. James acquires Brandon Cooks from Caleb, and Caleb returns Michael Gallup, man. Just move. Dude is just hopping around the league.
Just passed around like a cheese platter.
Tossed around, man.
Yeah, poor guy's just getting passed around like he's worthless, man. Gallup and a second rounder, it looks like. Yeah, 2023 second to Caleb. Ty, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, so I had Caleb coming out on top of this one. Gave him a B for it. And I gave James a C. And Brandon Cooks is very good, but he's like 29 now. He's kind of on the Texans. I know he produced well last year, but I just don't know how much longer that recipe's there for. I think he gave away a couple assets with promising futures in that 2023 second. We know that's a really good class. And then also in Gallup, who's 4 years younger and has just gotten a new contract. I think Cooks might be the best piece of that deal right now, but I think just in terms of dynasty and setup, I think Caleb came out on top. So I gave him a B, James a C.
What you got, Lucas?
I'm going to give Caleb an A- on that one. Y'all know I'm very well versed in the 23 class. That pick is going to turn out a lot more valuable than we think a couple years down the road. And then the other thing is Gallup being so much younger than Cooks, especially for Caleb's team, is a team that didn't make the playoffs this year, maybe looking to the future a little bit more. I didn't hate it for James. I gave James a C+. I didn't think it was awful. I understand his thought process with it. But I would go with the youth and especially that 23 draft pick. That should not be taken lightly.
Mm-hmm. We're all fairly similar on this one. I mean, there might be half a letter difference between us, but I gave it a C for James and a B+ for Caleb. Similar thought process. I like Cooks a little more in Gallup, but it's close because of the age. I think Gallup isn't significantly. I mean, they're in the same tier for me. I might like Gallup slightly more just because of the youth, but it's very close. I still think Cooks is the better short-term producer, but you got to think about the youth and what Gallup could be long-term for Caleb. When Caleb doesn't make a ton of trades, but when he does, they're actually normally pretty good, at least in this dynasty league so far. So I think this was an effective trade for him, getting a really solid second on top of a good young receiver. So B+ for him.
Did you note that in his voice? Matt's still salty about that whatever it was that happened a couple years ago, the midnight deal at the deadline where he sent you who was it, Chubb or somebody. He's made good trades, at least in this dynasty league. He definitely noted that. I'm still talking about it too, actually.
I digress. All right. Next up, T. Higgins to Lucas. I know he's going to want to talk about this one for Pittman in 108. I told Lucas before the show, we did not share our grades with each other, but I did tell him this was one of the only trades that I actually had him slightly losing. But I told him it wasn't a significant loss. I will actually I'll give Brandon a slight dub on this one, but I do think it's close. I'm giving Lucas a B for getting T. Higgins. I do think T. Higgins is a great asset. Probably a low-end wide receiver 1, very high-end wide receiver 2. If he's not, somewhere falling between that wide receiver 12 and 15 range for Dynasty, I would say. Still a very good asset. But I would probably put Pittman as like a top 20 to 22 Dynasty asset, probably around wide receiver 19 to 20. So it's not a huge upgrade. And I think throwing in a first, especially a mid-first who could be like Chris Olave or someone like that, I think was a minor overpay. But I understand why Lucas did it. He wanted to get his guy. I just think that was a very, very good haul for Brandon to give up Higgins. So I'll give Brandon an A- and Lucas a B.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar thought process as you there. I gave Lucas a B, Brandon a B+ on it. Big T. Higgins fan. I just think that I think T. Higgins has much more explosiveness to his game. I think he's in a better offense. I think he does a lot more when the ball gets in his hands. I think it kind of just purely came down to me. How big is the drop off of Pittman to Higgins, and then how much does that first round draft pick buoy that value up a little bit? And for me, it just knocked it a titch higher. Still really like Higgins. Think Pittman's going to get a lot of volume. Obviously, he's in a much better situation now with Matt Ryan as his quarterback. And that first round pick is, that's pretty much smack in the middle of our first round. So that's a nice return for T. Higgins for Brandon, who has plenty of good players. Like this deal made a lot of sense for him, I think, because he had Jamar Chase, he has Joe Mixon, had a ton of shares of the Bengals offense. So selling a piece of it made sense. And I think if you were to sell a piece, it would have been Higgins. And he got a pretty good return from it in my book. Get it for Lucas too, though. Love T. Higgins.
So before I give my grades here, I'm going to tell the backstory of how this came about. I begged Brandon.
Fairly brief.
I begged Brandon for about 2 months just to send me an offer for him. He would not send me an offer. Just constantly hitting him up. One day after the season, finally sends it through, and that's what appears. Now, this was my guy. I was willing to overpay. And so considering that's all it was, I didn't actually think it was too bad. Now, T. Higgins is my guy. I think he's a top 6 or 7 dynasty wide receiver. I'd rather have him than CeeDee Lamb. It's no question. That's my guy. So I'm going to give myself an A+. I couldn't even get an offer, and I ended up getting him on my team. So I'm proud of myself. Brandon, I'm going to give a B+ because he did get a really nice haul. I did have to give up quite a bit. But that was my guy. As you can see, the Super Bowl stats, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think it's more of a 1A, 1B with Jamar Chase over there. And I think next year we're going to see a much lower difference between the two. Maybe wide receiver 6, 7 for Jamar, maybe wide receiver 9, 10 for T, something like that.
Love it.
All right. Moving on. Another Lucas trade. You were all over this offseason. Josh Jacobs for the 104 Dimitri. Ty, kick it off.
Again, I felt like this was a fairly even deal. I gave Lucas a B and Dimitri a B+, because Jacobs, running back, obviously a little more premium. I just don't know. There's something about him. He's always hurt, or he just is. He's never been like the most reliable cat. And so I think that this draft class has some really good players at the top of it, specifically in that top 5. So I value that 104 highly, and I think that the upside for that pick is going to be just as even higher than Jacobs for the next 4 years. So that's why.
Makes sense because that pick ended up in your hands.
Now I'm the proud owner.
Hometown love there.
Yeah, so I will give Lucas the dub on this one, but it's not major. Giving Lucas an A- and Dimitri a B. I do think there's going to be a really good player at 104. Ty, you obviously know you've scouted that pick a lot recently. You're going to get a really good player, no doubt. But I just feel like Josh Jacobs is still a very young running back who me and Lucas were actually talking about this earlier. There's not too many bell cows in the league, and Josh Jacobs you could probably classify as probably pretty much a bell cow. He's getting 70, 80% of the carries. Raiders offense is going to be better. That means probably more goal line work. And he's still young. He's never been an elite producer, but he's always been above average. I see an RB1 season for him this year. And I just think that you're kind of hoping whoever is at the 104 becomes as productive as Josh Jacobs is going to be. And there's just a wider chance that you miss with that pick to some extent, whereas you know what Jacobs is. So I'll give Lucas the win just because of having a consistent producer over kind of that unknown of the 104.
Yeah, I'd give myself a B plus with this one as well. And I'd probably give Mitri a B minus. My thinking with this trade was at 104, there's not going to be a running back available that I would want more than Josh Jacobs. And so with the lack of running backs in the league, I really wanted to turn, especially since I own the 105 already, I wanted to turn that 104 into a running back. I have a feeling Kenneth Walker will be gone before 104, and Breece Hall surely will be. So that leaves Isaiah Spiller, which I'd much rather have Josh Jacobs. I think that offense gets a lot better. He has finished as running back 14, 8, and 15 in standard the past 3 years. So he's always been that RB1 pretty much in a 14-team league. Just turned 24, explosive offense. I like it a lot. So B plus for me, B minus for Mitri.
Makes sense. Great.
All right, here's where there's been some big trades so far, but here's where we really get into some doozies, like some freaking massive deals. So we're obviously going to start with the number one dynasty asset most likely being moved for the first time, a trade that has led to a lot of tossing and turning for me. I received Cooper Kupp, Hunter Renfrow, Devin Singletary, and the 104 for Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Michael Thomas. I think I'm going to take the liberty to start here and admit that I think I probably lost this trade, but I don't think this one was very bad. I think it was fairly balanced. I'm giving it a B for myself. I think I got a very fair haul for Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Cooper Kupp is wide receiver 1, probably going to be next year, at least top 3. I mean, he's pretty much a lock for a top 3 or 4 receiver. Renfrow obviously had some bad offseason news with Devontae coming there, but still a very productive bench receiver who I can very confidently start as a flex on several weeks. 104, still obviously a very great pick that I, had a lot of value. And Singletary, don't love him, but he was running back depth. And really basically just gave away Taylor and Thomas, who's a complete unknown. So don't think it's too bad for me, but I'm giving it an A minus for Mitri and a B for me. I think this one was a minor L, but I don't really regret this one that much.
All right, Matt, I gave this one an A plus for you because it's the reason I now have Jonathan Taylor on my team. No.
Oh, okay.
I gave you a B. I gave you a B and I gave Mitri an A. I think it was if you were ever going to trade Taylor, I feel like it was a fair return. I mean, you did get the number 1 wide receiver by a landslide. You got pretty premium draft capital. Renfrow, this was before Devontae news. Renfrow was a really solid flex, even a wide receiver 2 maybe. And Singletary was solid depth. So, I mean, and I knew you had more in the works because we had another deal we were talking about on the side. So I saw your whole vision here, but I just think Jonathan Taylor is the best player in fantasy, and that outlook's not going to change for years. So that's why it's an A. I think that really it's hard to not come away with an A whenever you're trading for Jonathan Taylor. So that's where I landed. What about you?
That's fair.
I give it a C plus for Barnes. I didn't like it necessarily. I could see what the thought process was, especially with that deal we're going to talk about coming up with you and him. But I'm also going to give it a B minus for Mitri. I didn't like it. I didn't like the trade for either team when I found out about it. I thought it was just a bad trade all around. Mitri was coming off of a playoff appearance, really gave pretty much his whole team for this one asset. So I didn't like that. I didn't think his roster looked complete at all after he made that trade, some massive holes. And then Barnes giving up the number 1 asset. I thought he was on a pretty good path to have that slow build up into a real dynasty. And I think he sort of sold that a little bit short to try to compete this next year. So C plus for Barnes, B minus for Mitri. Did not like the trade for either team.
I'm about to roast myself on this next one.
We got 4 minutes to get this in. We're gonna start up a new.
Yeah, we'll get this one done, and we're gonna keep this going, but just on another call. So Dalvin, Alexander Madison on my end, and Gabe tied the entire world. DJ Moore, Devin Singletary, 104, 105, 106, 107. I'm just kidding. 104, 110, and 30 fab. Yeah, this is a D- for me. I really don't know why I did this. This is the one trade I don't look back and regret the cup one that bad. I mean, I might regret it slightly, but not significantly. I do regret this one. I do like Dalvin, and I do think he has a great place on my team this year. I'm not like a Dalvin hater. I just look at just how much I gave. Like I gave Ty a lot to get Dalvin, and I just don't know if Dalvin's worth that. So give Ty an A+. I think he got a fantastic return, and he was in a really tough spot going into this trade because he was looking at a team with terrible flexes and a lot of kind of like older stars. And he was like, you know, we were worried that Ty was going to have to just sell everything and go into full rebuild because we didn't really know where he was going to go with that team. I set him up on a track to really get younger and build for the future.
Share my thoughts.
Here, I'll hop in on this one
Okay,
next for Ty since you're involved in this. Since I'm the only one from an objective point of view, I didn't think it was that bad, Matt. I think you're being a little bit hard on yourself.
Yeah.
I'd give it a C for you. I didn't think it was great. I definitely thought Ty won. But I give Ty an A-. Dalvin Cook's still an RB1. You got Madison back. DJ Moore, really nice, obviously quarterback-proof wide receiver. Ty definitely needs him now with his lack of wide receiver depth. But also the 104 and the 110, those are going to be two really solid players, especially the 104. So it wasn't overpay. I could see where you're going with your vision, Matt. But Ty took advantage of the situation there to his full extent.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it came down to. I mean, you were really going for it this year, and you had just traded JT. You had this whole package worked out, and I remember the phone call because you were driving and you were talking about this deal you were trying to work out for Derrick Henry, and I was like, "What do you think about Dalvin Cook?" and you like thought about it for a minute, and then we had the deal in place like that night. So I think for me, yeah, I was in a weird spot. I mean, I had some top tier players and talent on my team that was a little bit older, and it was very just top heavy. I had like 4 good players, and the rest I didn't have any depth. That's what crushed me this year. And I really wasn't exactly looking to sell Dalvin. I wasn't opposed to it, but this deal definitely opened my eyes to I get a younger wide receiver in DJ Moore, 25, just got a new contract, a lot of upside. 104 and 110, I felt good about. I wasn't even really sure who was going to be out there at 104 because I hadn't dug in that deep, but I was like, that's going to be somebody good. And then Singletary, I thought that can hold over an RB2 spot because I expect Swift to take a step forward this year and take an RB1 role. So it seemed like if I was ever going to sell Dalvin for anything, this was definitely the time to jump at it. So I did. I gave myself an A for the deal, but I still gave you a B, Matt, because Dalvin is a running back 1, and he still has some years ahead of him where he will be in that echelon. And I think it fit your team and what you needed to really, go for it then. So I got the move. It wasn't like I still felt nervous about the deal even after we did it. It wasn't like I got done and I was like, wow, I did a great deal or I fleeced him. I didn't feel like that at all. So I give you a B.
I didn't feel like that in the moment, but now I just kind of look
at I remember Matt called me and said he was not going to do the previous trade with JT unless he had that one lined up with you afterwards.
That was 100% true.
It was a sort of a 2-for-1. He was going all in or not at all.
Yeah. They were a package deal. I told Mitri that on the phone. I'm like, dude, I'm not doing this until Ty approves the Dalvin trade. And he was like, so it was a package deal. I dropped those 2 trades like freaking bombs, like back to back, like within 2 minutes of each other. So, it was crazy, but we're going to start the second video up right now. All right, we're back at number 12. So we just talked about all the Dalvin Cup madness that happened. Now we got another pretty big trade, actually. Marcus, we know how much he's loved this one player in the draft. Not even going to say who it is, even though I think we all know who it is. We all know how much he's loved him this entire offseason. He just made the play he needed to get him. Traded up to get the 101, but he gave Chris the 102, the 202, and $15 fat. So I'll let you kick this one off, Lucas.
For Marcus, I gave this one an A-. I thought it was a really good deal for him. For Chris, I give it a B. I kind of understood what he was doing, especially at the time. I don't think there was as much of a gap between the 101 and the 102. But as the offseason has progressed, that gap has widened. And if you plug the players into this and you put Breece Hall as the 101 and then put whoever gets drafted at the 102 there, and then whoever gets drafted at the 202 as well, and this draft falls off pretty quickly. I think it looks very lopsided once the draft happens. So right now I'm going to give it an A- for Marcus, and then that B for Chris.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. I gave it an A for Marcus because, yeah, Breece Hall is going to be that 101, and he checks all the boxes. He's clearly the guy, I think. And that's only gotten better with time. But even in the moment, I still felt like right now we really think there's only one of those like premium running back assets in the draft, and you have to have 101 to get him. So I don't really think any amount. I mean, and to give up a couple second rounders for him doesn't seem like a huge price to pay if you're going to be getting one of those premium guys. So I think he spent up, and that I think it was a fair package, relatively speaking, especially since then we didn't know the gap was maybe that wide. But I think Marcus won. So I gave him an A, gave Chris a B because it is good depth. That'll help round out his team and get him younger, which is also something he needs to fit that Kyle Pitts timeline he has.
So I have to grade this one in a vacuum because that's how we're trying our best to do. But I will say that this in a vacuum, the grades I give is going to be a little bit different than kind of how I feel about this whole thing after the move Chris made right afterwards. But at the time, I had to look at Chris's roster construction. He has Derrick Henry. Yes, he's older, still going to be good for a couple more years. And James Conner, still looking to be a pretty good running back. But where Chris really, really, really needs help is receivers. I mean, he was starting freaking nobodies. Like, what's that guy's name for Tennessee?
Julio Jones, and he had the Zacchaeus guy for the Falcons. And then,
yeah, I mean, he had nothing. He was starting like that. I don't know, that guy that was filling in for Tennessee, like after Julio.
Indio Westbrook, something like that.
Yeah, Westbrook-Akine, whatever. He was starting him for some last season. Like, it was very bad. So I'm thinking, like, Chris is still giving him a position to get him an elite wide receiver, his choice of one in the draft. So that's not that big of a downgrade. And at the time, he's getting the 202, which is, I mean, I know it's not the deepest class, but that's still – Chris needed depth. I mean, his bench was guys that should be on the waiver wire. He needed players, like just bodies that he could potentially start. 202 gives him an option at that. So at the time, I actually gave this an A and an A. I thought it was actually a very balanced trade. Got some fab on top of it. This was made worse by the trade Chris made right afterwards, which I will go ahead and get into, which was where he traded that 202 immediately for 206, which is going to be a much less attractive player. And all he got, he also, he gave away the 202. He also got Tyler Johnson, who, it's a body, but I mean,
there was some steam there until they re-signed Chris Godwin for like an extension. It was kind of like, who's going to be the guy, because they had Evans in their contract, Godwin in the torn ACL. Weren't sure if they were going to sign him. Then they did. And then Brady comes back. So it's not like they're in a rush to get these developmental guys out there. They're still in a championship mode. So definitely lost value over time, I think. There.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely got worse. And I would give Chris the benefit of the doubt there that, he was kind of taking a gamble on that not happening. But I remember telling Marcus when this trade went down, he wanted my thoughts, and I was like, I think that was one of the most balanced trades I've seen this offseason. Like, I really think you guys both got a winning opportunity here. I think that was a very fair price to move up one spot. Thought it was very fair. But I'm going to give, in this second one, I'm going to give Chris a C. I'm going to give James a B. I don't think it's a home run for James, but I mean, I do think he got the better end of the deal. And I just think that it kind of removed the one reason why I liked the side for Chris, because the 206 is not going to be a guy you're very confident in ever playing, whereas the 202 might be. So I think there's a little bit of a gap there between those four picks, and don't think Tyler Johnson really does much for you.
Yeah, Tyler Johnson's not rounding that out. I was B and C, the same thing as you, B for James, C for Chris. And it's big for James because he doesn't have any first-round capital this year. So to get basically a first-round pick there was a good one.
Yeah, I had B and C as well. No reason to talk about it any further.
All right. Sounds good. Moving on, me and Carter. I been talking up Justin Fields for the longest time, but felt a little bit of a need to get a safer quarterback, so I go and acquire Matthew Stafford. The Deshaun Watson gets signed by the Browns right before this happens, so Carter knows he has a quarterback he can trust, so he feels the need to deal Stafford. He gets Donovan Peoples-Jones, the 114, $20 fab. I'll go ahead and give myself a B+ on this. I really like this trade for me. I don't think it's a home run, but I feel so much better going to sleep knowing I have Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp as a stack in my lineup. I don't think Stafford's a top 5 quarterback for next year, but I think he's definitely top 10 or 11. I think he's definitely a QB1, and he's very reliable, consistent. Getting Allen Robinson gives me an even better receiving core. I really like Matthew Stafford, and I trust him in my lineup. I don't think I really gave up anything too valuable. I mean, the 114's, it's a decent player, but not someone I was super excited about. Donovan Peoples-Jones did get a boost after Deshaun Watson's news, but I still don't think it's really a home run type player, and I don't really care about the fab. So I'm giving it a B for Carter. I think this was a pretty fair trade all around, but I will lean myself just because I think I got the best player in the deal.
I'm gonna go with a B for you, Matt, and a B plus for Carter. I think he slightly won it. Stafford's aging. I understand why you did it. I think the trade really benefited both sides. If I could give 2 A's, I might, but I just can't bring myself to do that. 114 for Stafford is pretty much how I look at it. I don't think Donovan Peoples-Jones or the $20 fab moves the needle. 114 for Stafford, that's pretty fair. You were needing the running back, Carter, or the quarterback. Carter just took the pick. Made sense for both teams.
Yeah, Matt, I was high on this for you. I gave you an A+ on this one. I gave Carter a B. And the reason being because if you're in a window to win now, you need to make sure you have sure things. I think the best thing you can do is have sure things to give you peace of mind here and going into the season. And quarterback was the biggest question mark on your team was Tua and Justin Fields. Tua didn't have Tyreek at that time. And the fact that you can stack that with Kupp, I felt like not only made this a really good trade, but it almost elevated the trades he did in the past. It makes Cooper Kupp more valuable. It makes Stafford obviously more valuable. I think that it all rises together. So I thought this was a really good deal for you. And I agree. That 114 is essentially it's a first-round pick in our league, but in most it's a second. So, I think that you're looking at something in that range that's pretty fair compensation for a quarterback who's going to be your guy and also a stack with the best receiver in fantasy. So I was big on it for you. But I see what Carter was doing too. He had his quarterbacks, and this was – if there was anybody he could have sold Stafford to, I think it would have been you. I do think he might have been able to weasel you for a little bit more, though.
Yeah, I have gotten a little lower on it. I don't really know why. Maybe I'm just being my own worst critic again. But I remember this was the one trade where at the time I made it, I was absolutely thrilled. It was a smash accept. I just remember I was actually at work, and I just remember being wanting this so bad. So when he said yes, sent it over, I was like, dude, thank goodness. I wanted that one really bad. So I am very happy with that trade. Looking back at it, definitely glad I made it. Definitely sleeping better knowing I have Stafford.
This next one was the blockbuster of the offseason. So let's talk about this one.
Yeah. 2024 second to Lucas for Terrace Marshall. Let's just say our grades. We're not going to talk about it. A- Lucas, C for Mitri.
A- me, D for Mitri. Terrace Marshall sucks.
I did B and C. But wait, say yours again one more time. I wanted to get those down.
A- and for Lucas, C for Mitri.
I said A- for myself and D for Mitri.
Yeah, I'm not super high on Terrace Marshall, but I don't think it's egregious. It's just
he could have had Terrace Marshall for probably 10 fab.
Yeah. You were probably going to drop Terrace Marshall, so you got to.
Yeah, he was not in my future plans at all.
Yeah. All right. Now the next one's a pretty big deal. Amari Cooper Carter gets the stack with Deshaun Watson. I actually forgot to mention Donovan Peoples-Jones when I traded him. Deshaun was cleared of his civil suits or whatever, legally cleared from his charges. So Carter knew he was going to play. He actually wasn't a Brown yet when I traded DPJ. But now at this point, Deshaun was a Brown. Carter wanted to get the Amari Cooper sweepstakes to get that wide receiver 1 stack with Deshaun Watson. He also gets the 211 and the 210 from Jeremy, and he gives away Deontay Johnson. Yeah. Very good PPR consistent receiver. I'll go ahead and start with this one. I'm going to give it a B+ for Carter. Really liked it for him. Don't think it's that big of a, I really don't think selling Deontay for Amari is that egregious, and I like getting the picks on top of it. But I am giving it an A- for Jeremy. I lean Jeremy here because I do like Deontay quite a bit more than Amari, but the picks kind of balance it out a little bit. The picks probably won't be too noteworthy, though, since they're late seconds. So, it's basically a receiver swap, and I think they're pretty close, but I like Deontay more. So yeah, and I think Deontay, even when Mr. Trubisky stays pretty consistent. So A- Jeremy, B+ Carter, but I liked it for both sides.
I'll throw my opinion in there. I had an A for Carter because I think that whenever Deshaun is playing, him and Amari are going to be one of the most valuable stacks in fantasy. It's just kind of a question of if Deshaun's going to be suspended this year, what that might look like. That throws a wrench in it. But regardless, I still like their upside for the next 3 years together at least, I think. But I gave Jeremy an A+ because I think Deontay is a much better player than Amari Cooper. And I think he's going to be I think he's just a better wide receiver. And so I think that to land him and trade an aging asset in Amari to somebody who really wanted him, he capitalized on that value well and got a receiver who I think is just better standalone. So love the move for Jeremy. And I understood it for Carter. Thought it would fit his team pretty well.
Yeah, I gave Jeremy an A. I think Deontay Johnson is actually a couple tiers above Amari Cooper. Maybe I'm low on him, but he's 27 years old, and he came in the league at 20 years old. So this is going to be his 8th season. He's got a lot of snaps under his belt. He's bounced around a lot, and he didn't look as explosive last year, even in a pretty explosive offense. I think he's going to have a disappointing season. I'm pretty low on him, actually. But I do understand what Carter was trying to do with the swap. So I'll give Carter the B- with this one and Jeremy an A. Those second round picks, especially in this draft, 210 and 211. I mean, will they even make most rosters? Who knows? But yeah, clear win for Jeremy, in my opinion.
Gotcha. That's fair. Yeah, you are a little lower on the most, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Still think it's a very valuable stack because there really isn't much
If it's a stack.
in Cleveland.
If it's a stack.
Why you think?
There ain't gonna be much in Cleveland because they're literally paying him $230 million guaranteed. Like,
Yeah,
there's not much. Like, he's gonna have to overcome a lot of other deficiencies in the coming years. So there's not gonna be able to pay other people.
Well, and we have to also acknowledge that Deshaun Watson. I mean, he picks in his career so far. He's kind of picked a guy that is really good that he likes, and he throws to him a lot. So don't see any reason why that wouldn't be Amari Cooper. So if Deshaun Watson plays and isn't suspended an entire season, which I mean, I don't think he'll be suspended an entire season. Amari Cooper will be producing. So
I understood it for Carter. I just think I understood it both ways.
Yeah. This next one was actually very tough for me. I think this is about as balanced of a trade as we've had in the league. It's one of the rare ties for me. Lucas gets Damian Harris, Rashad Bateman, 114 and 211 from Carter. And Carter gets Saquon Barkley in the 112. Go ahead and I know I kind of already a little bit spoiled it a little bit. I'm giving it a B+ for both. I think this was about as even of a trade as it gets. Not going to call it an L for either guy. I think they both did pretty well. Carter gets a bell cow back when he's healthy. That's a huge asterisk because Saquon's not healthy much. But if he can stay healthy.
His rookie year is the only time he's been healthy, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've been a very big Saquon hater for years. I didn't want anything to do with him for the longest time. But I will say, I don't think Carter gave up anything of very significant value for the Saquon upside that he could be getting. And he got a slightly better pick. I do love Rashad Bateman as a talent. Just don't love him being, in Baltimore with Hollywood and Andrews there. Don't think he has unbelievable upside. Think he could be a flexible player, but don't think he's anything unbelievable. Damian Harris, just in a split backfield with Ramondre. James White gets all the targets when he's healthy. Just don't really think he's a very inspiring player. But I don't think Lucas gave up a ton. So, I think it's a B+ for both sides. Not a home run for either guy, but definitely not unfair.
I went B for Lucas and a C+ for Carter. And mostly it comes out of just the depth that Lucas got out of that. I think Damian Harris has every means of being just as good a running back this next season as Saquon does. Beyond that, who's to say? But beyond that, who's to say what Saquon's next contract is going to look like? I mean, he could just get a 1-year deal after this because he's not going to perform well. And it might be a wash between those two. Who knows? Like, Barkley obviously has the higher upside because of his draft capital and his raw talent. So that's there. But I like getting Bateman on your side. I think that's a player with a lot of upside. He's very talented, has a nice build, and I think he's in an offense that's going to be good. I mean, we saw kind of glimpses of what he could do last year. He only moved down 2 picks. So I just thought, if you were going to sell Saquon, I thought that was a pretty good return. I liked it a lot for you. And I don't know, something about Saquon just rubs me the wrong way. I think that maybe it's the Giants in general. It's just like they're just under, like at the community pools, they used to have like the mushroom things of just rain water straight down. And like they could easily just step out of it and like not be under the water anymore. But they just keep going around in this Daniel Jones circle and like letting it just destroy him. And they won't step out. And that he's ruining everything. He's ruining everything. So that's why I think I'm graded that way.
I give myself a B on this one, and then I give Carter a B minus. I shopped Saquon around a while before accepting this deal. Most of y'all watching know this. The league is not high on him.
Yeah,
man.
none of us
This league
wanted him.
hates him. This league hates him, man. I couldn't sell him for anything. It felt like. I really felt like Saquon was a situation where one more bad year and he completely loses every single bit of value he has. And I didn't want to take that risk as a team that's not necessarily looking for a championship this year, maybe a couple years down the line. So I really wanted to move on from him, get anything I could. Harris, to me, he was still RB14 this year, very touchdown dependent. Don't believe that will happen again. But I think he can serve as a good depth running back for me. And then Bateman with that upside, maybe he turns into a wide receiver too, and this deal looks a lot better for me down the road. So that's my thinking with this.
What were your grades though? I didn't hear them.
It was a B for me and a B minus for Carter.
Gotcha.
All right, now we got another blockbuster. There were a lot of these. This is another top dynasty asset being moved. Marcus makes an aggressive move and gets Javonte Williams from Jake. Jake gets the return of Antonio Gibson, Van Jefferson, a 2024 first, and pick 212. Ty, start this one off.
Okay, I'll jump in there with it then. I'm giving Marcus an A. I think that Javonte is a rocket ship. He's 21 years old. He's going to have that backfield to himself. And that team just got so much better this offseason with Russell Wilson. So I think that awesome to lock him up with Breece Hall, who he's going to take, and Justin Jefferson. That's an insane trio, a great core to build around. I think it really helped reshape his timeline. Not only acquiring the 101, but also getting Javonte in an offseason. He's totally rebuilt his team. And I think the capital he gave up to get this, obviously the 2024 first in there, is that is substantial. I mean, that's going to come into play definitely down the line. But I mean, Van Jefferson seems like he's kind of stuck on a depth chart. I like the player. He's good. We've seen some flashes, but the Rams are going for it now, not interested in developing young guys, and he's clearly behind a few people there. And then Gibson, I mean, gosh, you want to believe in the guy, but the Washington, they just don't. Like they brought back McKissick. He's going to take the receiving work. It's not going to be a 3-down workload like what Javonte is going to have. So I think it was a big win for Marcus. I gave him an A and I gave Jake a C. That 2024 first is really like the saving grace in this for me, I think. That is how I think you could say it was closer to an even deal than anything, obviously. But I think I like Marcus's sign. Much prefer it.
I'm with you. I gave Marcus an A on this one. I gave Jake a C plus because I love picks. But that 2024 first is so far out there. It's such an unknown at this point, especially with the core Marcus has, like you said, Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, Justin Jefferson. Those are 2 RB1s and a wide receiver one potentially. And they're all young. So who's to say that 2024 pick won't be 112? 113, 114, who knows? But I think it set up Mark's team really nicely for the future. And I definitely don't know exactly what Jake was necessarily thinking with that one, especially with the other guys he has around him.
I'm not quite as hard on it as you guys are. And it's weird. Are we in the Matrix? Like, I'm actually being the nicest to Jake of us three. Like, what is going on here? Like, sound the alarms. I'm giving Jake a B. I don't think it's atrocious. I think it's actually a pretty decent haul. I think he could have got better, and I do think he should have just kept Javonte. I'm giving Marcus an A, just like you guys. We all agree Marcus gets an A. Great trade from Marcus. I just don't think this is that bad for Jake. I still think Gibson's pretty close to being a bell cow himself. I know McKissick gets the receiving work, but Gibson still gets some of that. And they seem to like him quite a bit. He really came into his shell kind of second half of last season. Still think he's a very solid running back, possibly a low-end RB1 or a high-end RB2 at worst. Still like him. Van Jefferson, not super inspired by him, but he's a decent talent. And yeah, the 2024 first could be late, but it could also be decent, could be mid, And if it's mid, we don't really know much about that class yet, but a mid first in almost any class is going to be a pretty good player. So I don't think Jake did that bad here. It's just, it's not, I like Marcus aside because he got the best player, but I don't think it's a bad package. Now the 212, you might as well throw that out, but.
And I mean, but that 2024 first could just be a trade chip too. I mean, because it's going to be so long before that actually has like a precise number on it. It's just going to be free money for a while. So like, there's going to be limitless value on it because we won't exactly know. Because during next year, that's going to be what the 2023 first were this year. So it's never bad to stock up on those. But I do think that Javonte is he's probably going to be a top 5 running back whenever that 2024 pick even comes up. So I mean, like, I feel like he's going to be that good that it almost wasn't worth trading, personally. But we can.
We need to rock paper scissors over who gets to start this next one. This is about to take up 10 minutes of the episode. We got.
I feel like you let me get my piece out on it, and then I'll let you guys talk.
Okay, we got JT getting moved again. This time he's going to the Jimmies, and he will probably retire a Jimmy. Along with Nyheim Hines, Alan Lazard, and a 2024 first for Devontae Adams, Devin Singletary, and Chris's 2023 first.
Okay, well, first off, I think that I think I won this deal just because I got Jonathan Taylor. Like I said before, anytime you get the best player in fantasy in the trade, you're probably winning it. So I'm giving myself an A+ on it because I got Taylor. Not only was I able to get him, I also got the 2024 first, which we just kind of talked about as like free money and who knows where it'll land. But to get that return back was it felt great. So I liked that. And then getting Lazard thrown in the deal, obviously with Aaron Rodgers as my quarterback, I'm definitely expecting the Packers to bring in a wide receiver. And Lazard's only on a 1-year, like $4 million deal, but that's a body, and he's been good. They have a rapport. So felt good about that. Hines is he's the backup there. Kind of can be flex-worthy on his own depending on the receiving game. So love the package I got. But I do want to talk about what I gave away because, I mean, I think that people are blowing it out of proportion. Like, obviously, in terms of like building a team in the future, I like my side getting JT. But it's not like Mitri didn't get the best receiver in football in Devontae Adams.
At 29 years old.
Devontae had a great – he is aging. Now, one of the things I was looking to do this year was get younger.
Cooper Kupp just set like 20 records last year. Are we 100% sure he's the best receiver in football?
Wasn't wanting to – well, theoretically speaking. Wasn't wanting to necessarily trade Devontae until he went to the Raiders. And then I was really looking like, I'll keep him, but I hit up Mitri right away when he went to the Raiders, and he didn't want to sell JT. And I was like, I totally get it. But then it came back around. The opportunity came up. He threw him on the block, and I just started chirping him again. And it was enough to do it this time. Going to miss him. Absolutely great player. But I think using him at that age to springboard my team into a younger era and a younger generation, I think is going to keep us pretty competitive was exciting. And the 2023 first, that's extremely valuable. I held that pick in really high regard and didn't want to move off it easy. But when it came to getting Jonathan Taylor, who is a known, proven top running back in the league, it really wasn't much of a question as compared to a pick that we might not know exactly where that's going to be. People could have their idea, but a lot is still left to play out by then. And even people that are still in college that we think could be at the top of that class could get hurt this year, could go back to school for another year. Like, that class is not set in stone. It looks good on paper right now, but there's still a lot to be played out with all that. So get Jonathan Taylor off that was a huge pivot for me. That's my pick.
Go next, Mitri.
What's your grade for Mitri?
Great. I gave Mitri a C for that, just because he still got Devontae's a really good.
Down the alarm.
All right, I'll take it over from here.
I want to take
Okay.
Devontae's a really good player. That's a really premium pick. I don't understand how it fit the timeline of his team at all, though.
Can you please let me go, Lucas?
We can just tag team this one, Matt. This was the worst trade I've ever seen in fantasy football.
Mitri, we love you as a person. Awful. We love you as a friend, so please do not be too offended by this. This was freaking terrible.
You had an offer of Josh Jacobs and 3 firsts. 3.
I offered
just
you
Jonathan
Dalvin Cook
Taylor,
and
nothing
Steve
else.
Lamb.
No Alan Lazard, nothing. You had Josh Jacobs and 3 firsts sitting on the table, and you took 1 first, a 29-year-old Devontae Adams on a brand new team in a brand new system, and who else? What else did you? Oh, Singletary, who's about to be replaced. You gave up I don't know who you expect to draft with this 23 first, but he's not going to be as good as Jonathan Taylor. He's not. He's just not. He's the 101 fantasy asset. I don't care who you're going to draft. You're not going to draft Jonathan Taylor with that pick. And the way you value this pick from this trade, the way it looks, is that you think you're getting Jonathan Taylor back in the 23.
No,
and you're just not. This was the worst trade I've ever seen.
With that 101. He thinks he's getting Adrian Peterson, but if Adrian Peterson also added 1,000 yards to each season, that's what he thinks he's getting with 101. I want to pull up the receipts, actually. I'm not going to on this episode. I texted Ty the moment the Devontae Adams news broke to the Raiders, and I said, congratulations on winning Jonathan Taylor. I texted him that night. This was weeks before this trade. I knew that Jonathan Taylor was going to die a Jimmy because I just knew that Jacob Mitri was going to trade anything to get the Raiders' new toy, the Raiders' new fancy player on his roster. Mitri, I love you, man. You've made some good trades. We've actually been pretty nice to a lot of your trades so far on this episode. I mean, but this was an incredible misstep, man. I don't know where you got 0. I mean, you got a first. Yes, it's going to be a good first. But, I mean, you're banking that your team's going to be super good in 2024 and that's going to be a late first you gave away. If it's not, then you're pretty much giving away this.
Oh, my gosh, I forgot.
That you just
got the 24 for – it was a pick swap. It wasn't even a pick.
You didn't even get a pick.
I forgot about that.
Ty, you gave an A plus, Ty. This is not an A plus for you. This is an A plus for you, and it's an F for Mitri. This was bad. I mean, this was really bad, guys. Mitri, I mean, best of luck to you. I hope you figure it out. This was, I don't know what you were thinking.
As the owner of Mitri's 23 first and second, thank you, Ty. Thank you, Mitri. You helped my team. We'll see what that turns into next year. But man,
well, what was your grade?
The literal? I'm pretty active in the Reddit Dynasty sub, and I don't think I've ever seen a trade this bad commented in there. This is absolutely just terrible, especially considering the offers I know you had on the table.
What's your grade?
Don't know what you were thinking.
We know what his grade is, Ty. It's an A plus and an F.
It's an A plus and an F minus.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was. I mean, Ty. And congrats on being a very nice guy.
I mean,
this was bad.
You slammed it out of the park, Ty, and Mitri just. I don't know if you like roofied him or something before you made him do this trade, but man.
Okay, we're at 10 minutes. We got to fly through these next couple. Rojo and 206 for DJ Chark. Just going to go through this quick. I think it was a pretty fair trade for both sides. I'm giving it a B and a B. I like it for Marcus. He gets some upside with Rojo next season with CEH being uncertain. But I think DJ Chark still has some left in the tank, and he should get decent target share in Detroit. I like it for both sides, B and B.
Yeah, I'll give Marcus a B+. I'll give Chris a B. 206 and Rojo, I think, is slightly better than Chark. Just the 2-for-1. I do think Chark's still the best asset in this, but it's a 2-for-1, so I'll give the edge slightly to Marcus. Pretty even trade.
I gave Marcus a B and Chris a C. I really like Rojo this year. I was trying to trade for him myself. I think that he's going to be in a really good situation there in Kansas City where Clyde Edwards-Helaire has not delivered or lived up to that, and we've seen the running back too there do very well in filling in. So I thought it'd been a nice complimentary piece, and I like that a lot for Marcus. Don't really feel too strongly about Chark. I think he's kind of going to Detroit to wash away. 21.
Okay. This is one. Let's give it 3 seconds of our time. 209 to Marcus for Daniel Jones and 302. B for Marcus, D+ for Jake. Daniel Jones does nothing for him. The pick is also pretty much 302 is useless. 209 is not super fancy either, but I mean, Daniel Jones is useless, like I said. At least it gives him some depth. We'll see what happens, but I like it for Marcus.
Yeah, C for Marcus, D for Jake. Didn't really nothing.
Yeah. C+ for Marcus, D for Jake. Yeah.
Does nothing for either of them.
If this was a 10-man league, these players would not be talked about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they wouldn't be on rosters.
Mm-mm.
Now we get to ones that happened just the other day. Ty gets the 108 from Brandon for Kadarius Toney and Brian Edwards. This is a rare L from Brandon. Like, I mean, Brandon's been a pretty dang good trader. I know he's taken some minor L's, but he's also taken a lot of really big W's. But Ty, you knocked it out of the park again. I think this is a fantastic value. I give you an A. I'm not going to quite give it a plus, but it's definitely an A. Giving Brandon a C minus. I mean, I think he overbought into the Kadarius Toney hype as far as him potentially moving teams. Now I saw news today that he's probably not getting moved. So I mean, you're trading for Toney hoping that he goes to like Green Bay or something like that, or Kansas City, and just blossoms into a star. Not likely going to happen. And Kadarius Toney in the rookie draft last year probably was like a second round pick with how good that class was. And you just paid like 6 or 7 picks higher for this upcoming draft to get him on your team. I just think it was a severe overpay. You did really well again.
Yeah, I'm gonna go A for Ty, and then C minus as well for Brandon. I'm not big on Toney. I think those off the field, not showing up for workouts, injuries, late breakout, wasn't a great prospect coming out anyway. Not huge on Toney. I think he does have some upside. And then Edwards is just looking buried on that depth chart there for the Raiders now. And I think 108 is going to be a good player. I'd be looking at maybe Chris Olave, maybe Isaiah Spiller potentially. Whoever that is, I'd much prefer them to Toney.
Yeah, I gave myself a B, gave Brandon a D. I really was surprised I was able to get that pick for this package, mainly because I think Toney's a troublemaker and he's got a lot of talent, but I think it's a new staff there. He's missing the first day of workouts, so we already know he has a big injury past and some like off the field stuff. I was really looking to get rid of him, and I was actually talking to Lucas about a trade with him like a couple days before, and then this news broke, and I was like, well, now I'm going to be stuck with this guy. Just so happened that Brandon was interested enough in him. So I only give myself a B because there is still obviously a chance that he breaks out and becomes good. And I didn't want to take that chance. But Brandon has obviously maybe a more talented roster to sit and wait on it. But I preferred the pick in my situation because it led me to do trade number 23, which we should spend our last 6 minutes talking about here because it was the most recent and biggest one.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'll kick it off.
Can I share my thoughts on it?
You can kick it off. It's your trade.
So I've been talking with Carter about Debo before, and then this trade was Rondale pick 108, which I just acquired, and 110 for Debo, 210 and 310. And really what it came down to was as I was examining my roster and all these moves I'd made this offseason, I felt like I put myself in a much better position to contend. And the one big hole that I kept seeing in my team was another wide receiver. I had DJ Moore, who is younger, a lot of upside, has flashed quite a bit. It's not in a great situation. Still not a great quarterback with Darnold. And as I'm looking for like a younger wide receiver that's good, that could fill that gap and rock a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 spot for me, because otherwise I'd be relying on rookies that I drafted for that. Debo kept coming up, and I think that this was all in all a pretty fair trade for both sides. Debo's obviously a little uncertain now with where he's going to go. That's alarming for sure. But I think it was worth the risk for me because I think it could really reap a big benefit. So because I had 4 first-round picks at that point, I didn't care to necessarily part with 2 of them to get Debo. And I don't really value Rondale Moore that high. I think he's got a lot of talent, but I don't think he's ever going to be like a stud. I think he's a flex at best for all of his career. He's 5'7". He's small. He's going to be a gadget player, I think. So, and there's a lot of mouths to feed in that Cardinals offense. So I didn't value him highly. I really looked at it as 108 and 110 for Debo. And I think I was willing to do that, given the fact I had 2 other first-round picks, one of which is 104, which I believe will yield me a high prospect. And it rounded out my team really well. So that's really what my train of thought was there, given the uncertainty of Debo's situation. And then the 210 and 310 are just kind of like little pieces thrown on there. Who knows what will happen with that? But really,
What's your grades?
So I gave his B. I gave both of his Bs.
Okay, fair trade. You've had a fantastic offseason, Ty. This one was tough to grade because we don't know where Debo's going. Very tough to grade because it's very incomplete. You know, I mean, a lot of these other trades we talked about, we've found out the resolution of where the free agent's gone or what's been the end-all be-all for it. I am kind of basing my grade off the assumption, or maybe not an assumption, but just the prediction that I think Debo is leaning towards maybe being a Jet. Now, granted, if he goes to the Cowboys or something like that, then I think I like it for you, Ty. If he goes to the Jets, having to assume that, I'm still giving it a B for you, but I'm giving it an A- for Carter. I think Rondale upgrades to a wide receiver 2 in his offense now that now that Christian Kirk's out. He should potentially get a little bit better, and getting 2 draft picks, which Carter did not have really any of. On top of that, I think is a very good haul for a potential Jet. The 210 and the 310, yeah, they're pretty much useless. And yeah, I mean, I do think this has very high upside for you, Ty, and it definitely gives you a better ceiling to contend for a championship. So I really did like it for you in that aspect. I just have to kind of go off the assumption of where I think Debo will land. And I don't think Debo, I mean, he's still probably a great wide receiver 2 or a low end wide receiver 1, even as a Jet, just because of the talent. But he does not have that type of upside that he had from last year's season. We're bound to get some regression. And I don't think you're going to get the Debo that you probably want to get to be that elite player if he goes to the Jets. So I'm giving it a B for you. Still don't hate it, but I think Carter actually did pretty well here.
I'll give both a B+ on this one. I thought this trade made really perfect sense for both teams. Ty had a glaring hole he had to fill. I mean, he had the draft capital to be able to spend those picks to go get it. I do think that you sort of bottom at maybe not peak value after those news, but I think with his injury history and where he lands, especially with him not wanting to be a wide back anymore, I could see this being his peak value ever. He's had extensive injury history, never really been that good. So I think he did pay a lot for him, but I could see why you did it, especially with the other moves you made this offseason. Carter gets 108 and 110. Rondale, I don't believe in him. I think he's too short to be a real weapon in the NFL. But 108 should be a good player. And then 110 is going to be another really good bench piece, I think, for him. So it made sense for both teams. I understand why both y'all did it. I thought it was really fair value for both. I didn't think either team was really getting ripped off in any way with that trade.
Yeah, Carter called me to talk about that one, and I was like, dude, that's a fair trade. I was like, it's like I see both sides. I'm like, I get why Ty's doing it, but I cannot, give you really any advice on this one. You should just follow your gut, but that's balanced, So I like that trade for both of you, and it's a good way to end this episode. But this was a lot of fun, guys.
Yeah, I had fun, guys.
And hopefully nobody's feelings get hurt too bad. I kind of want to go through. I've written down all the grades we gave. I want to try and put it into a little picture or something we can send out so everybody can see exactly what we did. It'll be interesting to see who we thought were the big winners and big losers. Might have a little bit of an idea, but we'll actually be able to see it in physical form whenever I send that.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to let y'all know none of this is personal. We're all friends here. I love all of y'all. It's going to be a fun season, but we do this for you guys. We do it to entertain you and also just to have a little casual debate. So please don't take it too personally, but this was a fun off season. Glad we were all very active.
Let's go, Buds.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Peace.
All right. Well, see you guys.